They were hikers, runners, adventurers, all vanished without a trace. A toddler gone from a campsite. A solo hiker disappears in broad daylight. A woman vanishes on her afternoon run. No blood, no bodies, no answers. From the forests of Idaho to the peaks of Wyoming, these disappearances defy logic, and they're still unsolved. She was smart, fearless, and incredibly prepared. A 23-year-old mountaineer with 5 peaks on her summer checklist. Tatum Morell knew the risks, and yet she vanished into thin air without a single trace. Not even her tent was disturbed. How does someone so experienced disappear on a solo climb in broad daylight with GPS, some gear, and a plan? Before we unravel this baffling mystery, what do you think happened to Tatum? An accident? Or something far stranger? July 2021. Red Lodge, Montana. Tatum Morell, a mechanical engineering graduate from Montana State University, set off on a solo expedition to summit 5 of the state's toughest 12,000-foot peaks in the Beartooth Mountains. She had experience. She'd climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. She had a Garmin GPS. She was trained in wilderness survival. This wasn't a thrill-seeking teenager. This was a calculated adventurer. On July 1st, she checked in with her family from her base camp near Shadow Lake. That would be the last time anyone would ever hear from her. By July 5th, Tatum's family grew worried. She hadn't returned as planned. Search and rescue teams sprang into action. Helicopters, ground crews, infrared cameras, dogs, you name it. Over 100 volunteers joined the search. But nothing. Her bright yellow tent? Still there. Untouched. Her backpack and gear? Left behind. Everything in perfect order. It looked like she had just stepped out for a short walk and never came back. Even more bizarre, the weather had been clear. No storms, no rock slides, no signs of struggle, no dropped GPS, no clothing fragments, nothing. So what could have happened? Searchers focused on nearby rugged cliffs and steep drop-offs, but even in dangerous terrain you'd expect something. A trekking pole, a water bottle, a shoe. But they scoured every ravine. No clues. No blood, no shredded clothing. Her tent wasn't touched. Her food wasn't raided. And animals don't cover their tracks this well. Some wondered, did Tatum walk away from her life? But her mom shut that theory down. She had no reason to vanish. She was happy, driven, and had future plans. She had even recently accepted a new job offer. Some locals whisper about the Beartooth Mountains, how people have felt watched, how hikers have vanished without a trace before. Could there be caves, hidden crevasses, or something we simply can't explain? Tatum Morell's disappearance remains one of the most baffling modern missing persons cases in the Rockies. How can a woman so prepared, so capable, vanish without leaving a single trace? More than 2 years later, no evidence has been found. Not her body, not a scrap of gear, nothing. Just silence, in one of the most remote corners of Montana. If you were leading this search, where would you look next? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Maybe someone will finally see what others have missed. He was young, adventurous, and free-spirited, chasing the beauty of Wyoming's Grand Teton National Park. But on a warm summer afternoon, Cian McLaughlin set out for a solo hike and was never seen again. No calls, no texts, no trace. Just a vanishing so complete, even the most advanced search teams couldn't find him. What could have happened to a healthy 27-year-old man in broad daylight on a popular trail in one of the most beautiful places on Earth? Cian McLaughlin was born in Dublin, Ireland, but in 2021, he was living his American dream in Jackson, Wyoming. The 27-year-old was known for his vibrant personality. He loved music, art, snowboarding, and especially hiking. He worked as a snowboard instructor at Jackson Hole, spent his free time exploring national parks, and was described by friends as someone who radiated positivity. In other words, not the type to just disappear. On June 8, 2021, Cian left work early, telling friends he was heading out for a quick hike. He wasn't specific. He didn't log a route. He just grabbed his small backpack, wore a t-shirt, shorts, and set off into the Tetons. That was the last anyone ever heard from him. When Cian didn't show up for work a few days later, alarm bells rang. He was always punctual, never the type to vanish without notice. On June 12th, 4 days after his hike, a missing persons report was filed. Rangers located his car parked at Lupine Meadows Trailhead, a popular starting point for hikes to Amphitheater Lake, Delta Lake, and Garnet Canyon. Immediately, a massive search began. Drones scanned tree canopies. Helicopters buzzed above the cliffs. Dog teams were flown in. Ground crews trekked over 45 square miles of unforgiving terrain. Even climbers scaled the steepest ridges. And yet, there was nothing. No water bottle, no phone, no trace of Cian. It was like he'd stepped into the wilderness and vanished into the air. Then a twist. A witness came forward claiming they saw a man matching Cian's description the same day he disappeared. The man was hiking alone near Delta Lake, one of the more scenic but challenging routes in the park. He was shirtless, wearing shorts and a backward cap, with no visible gear, just a water bottle in hand. But here's where it gets odd. Delta Lake isn't part of an official trail. It's a semi-secret detour that only locals or experienced hikers usually know about. Why would Cian head there, without proper gear, so late in the day? Was he meeting someone? Did he know a shortcut? Or did he just want one last view before sundown? As days turned into weeks, the mystery only deepened. And so did the theories. Delta Lake and the surrounding cliffs are stunning, but dangerous. Slippery rocks, unstable edges, and steep drop-offs are everywhere. Some believe Cian may have fallen into a hidden crevasse or between boulders where rescuers simply couldn't spot him. But with such an intense search, could he really be that well hidden? Could he have collapsed from dehydration or suffered a sudden health event? It's possible. But if he were on or near a trail, his body or belongings should have turned up. So far, nothing. Unlikely. By all accounts, Cian was thriving, socially, emotionally, and professionally. He had travel plans, he wasn't withdrawn. There was no evidence he wanted to start over. Bears and mountain lions roam the Tetons, but animal attacks usually leave traces: torn clothing, blood, dragged remains. None were found. There's no public evidence of a crime, but some still wonder, did he meet someone out there? Was he followed? Could something sinister have happened off-trail? Months went by. Searchers returned again and again. Cian's family flew in from Ireland, joined by friends, desperately clinging to hope. Park rangers and volunteers continued combing the area for months. Posters were placed in hostels, gear shops, and trailheads across Wyoming. A GoFundMe campaign raised money to support private searches. But still, not even a shoe, a phone, or sunglasses have been recovered. It's like the park swallowed him whole. As of now, Cian McLaughlin remains missing. The case is open but inactive. That means no new leads, no new evidence, no confirmed sightings. His disappearance joins the haunting list of hikers who've gone missing in national parks and never come home. Each year, over 600,000 people visit Grand Teton National Park. It's a place of immense beauty, but also hidden danger. For Cian's family, the worst part isn't knowing he's gone, it's never knowing why. How does someone disappear in one of the most photographed places in America without a single trace? He was just 2 years old. July 10th, 2015, was supposed to be a simple family camping trip to the remote Timber Creek campground in Idaho's Lemhi County. 4 adults, 1 toddler. Everyone thought it would be a relaxing weekend in nature, but by the end of the day, the forest had turned into a crime scene, and DeOrr Kunz Jr. was missing. No one saw where he went. There were no screams, no signs of an animal attack, no footprints leading away from camp. The adults claimed they turned their backs for just a moment, and the boy was gone. But what followed was not just a desperate search for a missing child. It became a tangled mystery, full of contradictions, strange behavior, failed polygraphs, and growing suspicions. Not about strangers in the woods, but the very people who were supposed to protect him. So what really happened to DeOrr Kunz Jr.? Let's go back to the start. DeOrr lived in Idaho Falls with his parents, Jessica Mitchell and DeOrr Kunz Sr. They were young, 25 and 32, and by all accounts, loving parents. Friends and family said DeOrr Jr. was their whole world. A bright, happy little boy who loved toy trucks, cowboy boots, and spending time with his grandpa. On the morning of July 9th, 2015, Jessica, DeOrr Sr., and little DeOrr left Idaho Falls to go camping. With them were Jessica's grandfather, Robert Walton, and a friend of his, Isaac Reinwand, a man DeOrr Sr. and Jessica barely knew. They reached Timber Creek Campground, a rugged, isolated patch of forest about 10 miles from the nearest town. It wasn't a big, busy site. It was quiet, surrounded by hills, pine trees, and a nearby creek. The next day, Sometime between 2:30 and 2:45 p.m., little DeOrr vanished. The parents initially said they left DeOrr Jr. with Robert Walton while they explored a nearby fishing spot. They were only gone a few minutes, but when they returned, the toddler was nowhere to be found. Grandpa Walton said he thought DeOrr had followed them down the hill. Panic set in. The family searched the area, yelling his name, checking the creek, the trees, the campsite. Nothing. They called 911 around 2:35 p.m. Jessica was hysterical. DeOrr Sr. told dispatchers they'd lost our son and that he was 2.5 years old and he's been gone now for probably an hour. But even that first phone call raised questions. If the boy had only been missing for a few minutes, why say he'd been gone an hour? Within hours, search teams flooded the area. Drones, K-9 units, divers scoured the nearby creek. Helicopters hovered overhead. Dozens of searchers on foot combed the terrain. They found no sign of struggle. No clothing, no toys, no tracks. Bloodhounds couldn't pick up a scent trail, and the area was remote. There were no cars seen leaving, no strangers reported nearby. Wildlife experts said a wild animal taking the child silently, without dragging something away or leaving traces, would be incredibly rare. So if DeOrr wasn't abducted by a stranger and didn't wander off, what happened? That's when suspicion turned inward. Both parents gave multiple interviews in the following days, but investigators noticed inconsistencies. In one version, DeOrr had his sippy cup and blanket. In another, those items were left at camp. Jessica said they left the boy with Grandpa while they walked to the creek. DeOrr Sr. said they thought the boy followed them. Even the timeline kept shifting. Sometimes they said he disappeared at 2:30 p.m. Other times, it was earlier. And then there was the friend, Isaac Reinwand. He was reportedly quiet, kept to himself, and had a criminal record. But police cleared him early on, saying his story never changed. In fact, the only people whose stories did keep changing were the parents. As weeks turned into months, no evidence of DeOrr turned up. And then, in a bombshell announcement, Lemhi County Sheriff Lynn Bowerman made a statement that shook the case. He said that both Jessica and DeOrr Sr. were no longer considered just witnesses, but suspects. Neither parent passed their polygraph tests. Investigators believed they knew more than they were saying, but there was no arrest, no charges, and still, no body. In early interviews, Jessica said, "If someone has him, bring him home. He needs to be home with his mommy and daddy." DeOrr Sr. told reporters, "I guarantee my son is alive. I guarantee if somebody has him, they're hiding him, and they're not willing to come forward." But the public wasn't so sure. People started asking hard questions. Why was a 2-year-old left unsupervised near water and wilderness? Why didn't anyone see him wander off? Why was Isaac, a virtual stranger, invited to such an intimate trip? Why didn't the scent dogs pick up a trail? And why were the parents failing polygraphs? Then came the private investigators. Philip Klein, a well-known PI, was hired by the family to investigate. But within months, he quit the case and accused the parents of lying. Klein claimed they had changed their stories too many times and that he believed DeOrr had died at the campground. He suggested the family knew exactly what happened and may have covered it up. In response, Jessica and DeOrr Sr. denied all accusations. They insisted they were being unfairly targeted. That grief made them confused, that their inconsistencies weren't lies, just trauma. But their actions raised more red flags. They stopped cooperating with police. They moved away from Idaho Falls. And they separated, eventually accusing each other of hiding something. By 2019, both had lawyered up. And though no arrests have ever been made, police still consider the parents suspects. In one of the strangest developments, cadaver dogs reportedly hit on an area around the campground and near the pond where the family said they fished. But divers never recovered a body. Years have passed. No remains, no confirmed sightings, no credible abduction theory. In 2021, the case was officially declared cold, but not closed. DeOrr Kunz Jr. would be 11 years old today. His face is still on missing person flyers across Idaho. His family remains divided. And the question remains, did something tragic happen that day in the forest, or was it something more sinister? It's not just a story about a missing boy. It's a story about silence, about what happens when the people who hold the answers refuse to talk or don't tell the same version twice. To this day, the Timber Creek campground holds its secrets. If you were investigating this case, where would you start? Was this a tragic accident? Or something that was meant to stay buried? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want more cases like this, subscribe, because the truth has a way of resurfacing when you least expect it.